make it 6:05. Can you all hear me now? Yeah, fine. Before we begin, may I advise a few housekeeping issues. I'd like to remind members that under the Council's remote meeting procedure, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded for archive purposes. Can I also ask members, with the exception of Cabinet members and group leaders, that your mics and cameras are turned off until you're invited to speak by myself. Should you wish to speak, would you please indicate by raising the hand function on Teams? If this function ceases to work during the meeting, please indicate in the chat facility that you wish to speak. If attending by telephone, please indicate verbally when appropriate you wish to speak. With regard to voting on recommendations, if there's no dissent on the recommendation, I'll accept the silence as agreement. Should a vote, however, be required, it's my intention that all members be asked individually for their vote. If during the meeting you have any technical difficulties, please let Democratic Services know as soon as possible. Thank you. Firstly, do we have any apologies for absence? No? Councillor Hodges.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Ian Johnson.
Councillor, thank you very much. Councillor Carroll.
Councillors Margarita Wright and Leighton Rowlands. Not Leighton, Andrew R.T. Davis, apologies.
Councillor Hodges, do you wish to speak again, or your hand is still up? Councillors, can I remind you to please, if you've finished asking questions, can you lower your hands, please? Thank you. Right.
Councillor Tony Hampton, Madam Mayor, as well. I do have my hand up.
I beg your pardon?
Councillor Tony Hampton gives his apologies as well, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Right, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Julie Aviett.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Vincent Bailey.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Rhiannon Birch.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Jonathan Bird.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Bronwyn Brooks.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Liz Burnett.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor George Carroll.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Christine Cave.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Janice Charles.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Millie Collins.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Jeff Cox.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Robert Crowley.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Pamela Drake.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Vince Driscoll.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Stuart Edwards.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ben Gray.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Owen Griffiths.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Stephen Griffiths. Is Councillor Stephen Griffiths in the meeting?
Hi there, present, nothing to declare.
Thank you. Councillor Sally Hanks.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Nick Hodges.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Hunter Jarvie.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Gwyn John.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Gordon Kemp.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Peter King.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Kevin Marney.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Catherine McCaffer.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Anne Moore.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Neil Moore.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Michael Morgan.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Jane Norman.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Rachel Nugent-Finn.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Andrew Parker.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Bob Penrose.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Sandra Perks.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Andrew Robertson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Leighton Rowlands.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Ruba Sivanianam.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor John Thomas. Councillor Thomas.
I think Councillor Thomas is having difficulty getting in. He did earlier.
Yeah, I'll come back. Councillor Neil Thomas.
Present, nothing to declare.
Councillor Steffan William.
Presennol a dim byd i'w ddatgan.
Councillor Margaret Wilkinson.
Present and nothing to declare.
Councillor Eddie Williams.
Present and nothing to declare.
And Councillor Mark Wilson.
Present and nothing to declare.
And I'll just go back and check Councillor John Thomas, please.
Present, nothing to declare.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. That concludes the roll call.
Thank you very much. We move to item 3, which is approval of the meeting, minutes of the meeting. Could I have approval of the minutes of the AGM on the 10th of May 2021, please?
Can I formally move that?
And second?
Can I formally second, Mayor?
Thank you very much. And can I have the approval of the minutes of the 26th of July 2021, subject to an amendment on page 53 of the minutes, with reference to a note at the bottom of the page to be deleted, as this was an admin error.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will formally move that with that amendment.
And I'll formally second, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Right, the Mayor's announcements. Since our last meeting,
Madam Mayor, can I mention, are you going to ask Councillor Driscoll to comment at this stage?
Driscoll, you wish to come in here?
Yes, yes, Madam Mayor. And I'd like to take the opportunity to declare a retrospective personal prejudicial interest in minute number 290, given that I am and was at the time a director of the company that owns 50 Holton Road, Barry, and one of the 10 tenants had applied for a pavement licence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Driscoll. Item 4, announcements. Since our last meeting, I've managed to actually do a few things. We've signed the Diverse Council's declaration with the Deputy Mayor, the Leader and the Managing Director. Attended the 100th birthday celebration with a gentleman in Barry. Attended a walking group event in Llanford Major. The Royal Air Force Association presentation evening. The Emergency Services Day visit and photo shoot. The Merchant Navy flag raising event at the civic offices. Visited with the residents of the Bella Vista Nursing Home following a previous attended virtual opening of the ceremony. Leader, have you any announcements?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Right. Any officers, Councillor Burnett, you wish to make an announcement?
Yes, if I could, Mayor. And thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to inform Council that the UK Go Awards reflect the best in public procurement, and I'm absolutely delighted to inform Council that following their success in the Wales Go Awards, the Council's 21st Century Schools team have triumphed on the UK stage for delivering social value such as employment opportunities, community and environmental activities and contracts for local businesses. This is a richly deserved award for a team that has gone far above and beyond in delivering our £136 million 21st Century Schools programme, often trebling even their own ambitious community benefits targets. In just over 2 years, 82% even of the construction spend has been in Wales. 85% of the workforce is from Wales, with 48% from the actual postcode. 154 new full-time jobs, 86 apprenticeships have been provided, 99% of waste is diverted from landfill, and 47 community initiatives have been supported. In congratulating the team, I would also like to thank our partners, ISG, Bouygues, Morgan Sindall and ACOM, for their support and commitment to our ambitious goals. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bett. That's fantastic news and congratulations all round. Now I understand that Councillor John would like to make a short announcement.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, members. I wish to thank all members and officers of the council who sent me cards, letters and messages of condolences after my wife Gloria passed away on the 16th of August. Your support during this sad time has meant so much to me, and I am most grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John, and our thoughts are with you. Moving on to item number 5, the report from the Managing Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be taking this if I can. Can I refer Council to the agenda item 5, but also to the supplementary information, which was an agenda for this agenda, which came out earlier today. Basically, it's a bit of a housekeeping review. It is a bit complicated, but basically what this seeks to do is to amend the Council's constitution in regard to broadening the terms of reference of the Senior Management Appointment Committee, and to amend section 9 and 13 of the Council's constitution relating to the future composition of the Governance and Audit Committee. There were 2 original recommendations, and there's a third which comes from the supplementary report that came before us earlier today. Basically, in relation to this changes the way in which the Senior Management Appointment Committee works. Basically, it allows us to appoint lay members. Currently, the terms of reference state that it gives us delegated powers to select for and to interview and appoint the management structure to appoint the lay member of the Government and Audit Committee. What this does is proposes that the wording lay member is changed to lay members, to be honest, because basically what's happened is that the Local Government and Election Wales Act, which comes into force on the 5th of May, changes the way that this operates, the Audit and Governance Committee. So basically, Council is requested to approve amendments to the terms of reference of the Senior Management Committee, and that section 13 of the Council Constitution be amended accordingly. In addition, the Local Government Election Wales Act which comes into force, as I say, on the 5th of May 2022. It needs section 116 amends section 82 of the Local Government Wales Local Government Measures 2011 in order to increase the number of lay members on the Audit and Governance, the Governance and Audit Committees is called now. After amendment to the situation is that 2/3 of the members of the Governance and Audit Committee must be members of the Council and 1/3 must be a lay person. So in addition, there are 3 sections, subsections 5A, B and C are added to the section of the local government measure, and these provide that the Governance and Audit Committee must appoint a committee chair and a vice chair. The committee chair must be a layperson, and the vice chair must not be a member of the Council's executive or an assistant to its executive. Therefore, section 9 of the Constitution, which is 9.2 of the Governance and Audit Committee, will need to be amended, but not yet, but from the 5th of May 2022, to refer to the Local Government and Election Wales Act 2021 and the relevant provisions, which are in sections 116 to 118, and indeed 9.22 with reference to the composition of the committee, which relates basically to 2/3 and 1/3 members of the lay committee. So section 13 of the composition of the Audit Committee constitution will need to be amended when the Local Government Election Wales comes into force, and again I say on the 5th of May, with reference to the chairing be amended. So Council approval is sought to make the necessary amendments so that we can go out to advert for lay members in advance, so that come the 5th of May we are able to go forward. In relation to the supplementary information, we're going to ask that Council also adds a further recommendation. We've had discussions with the head of regional internal audit service relating to the recruitment and appointment of the lay members. It's necessary due to the timing of the above exercise, which, to be honest, the WLJ wishes the councils across Wales to commence from early October. so we need to do something now. It'll be necessary for the council to approve the council meeting tonight an amended composition of the committee to reflect the legislative requirements of the 2/3 elected and 1/3 lay member. So in light of that and the impending recruitment exercise, as I say, we need to be able to go out to recruit, and also the senior management appointment committee need to be able to recruit and appoint if necessary. That it's proposed that the future composition of the committee be amended to 6 elected members and 3 lay members to take effect from the annual meeting in May 2022. The committee cannot lawfully meet until May 22 unless one of the third of its membership are lay members. So basically, we have some recommendations before you. The recommendations are that the terms of reference of the Senior Management Appointment Committee be amended to reflect the requirements to appoint more than 1 lay member on the Audit Committee and Governance Committee with effect from the 5th of May, and Section 13 of the Council's Constitution be amended accordingly. 2, that Section 9 and Section 13 Governance and Audit Committee of the Council Constitution and the terms of reference of the Governance and Audit Committee be amended to reflect the requirements of Section 116 to 118 of the Local Government Election Wales Act to provide the following. The committee chair must be a layperson. The vice chair must not be a member of the council's executive or an assistant to its executive, and the composition of the committee must be 2/3 members and 1/3 lay members. And then the third additional recommendation is that the future composition of the Governance and Audit Committee be amended to 6 elected members and 3 members to take effect from the annual meeting of May 2022. I apologise for the length of it, but it is technically we do need to require to go through the legal procedures. So can I formally move those recommendations, please?
And formally second, Mayor.
No other comments, so I take that as passed, accepted. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Council. The next item is the Vale Glamorgan Annual Report Improvement Plan Part 2. The report was taken to Cabinet on the 13th of September. The report presents a draft of the Vale Glamorgan Annual Report Improvement Plan Part 2 for 2021, and it outlines the progress towards achieving the wellbeing improvement objectives agreed in April 2020. It also incorporates the end-of-year position statement on the Council's corporate risks, an annual review of progress against its regulatory proposals, and the Head of Internal Audit's opinion on the Council's governance and arrangements. There's another issue there too, as this is the last annual review performance of the local government measure. The report also provides a summary of the performance provisions of the new Local Government Election Wales Act and proposed a timetable for producing and publishing the Council's self-assessment in 2020 under the new Act. Therefore, the Council's self-assessment report in 22 would replace the current annual review performance, which was appended to Appendix A of the full report. So basically, Cabinet resolved that the draft report be endorsed and referred to Council for approval, as is here tonight, that the proposed timetable of producing and publishing the Council's self-assessment be approved and referred again here for approval. And thirdly, following consideration by full Council, I hope that we will accept the proposed timetable, that the Vale Glamorgan Annual Report, which was at Appendix A of the report, be referred to the Governance and Audit Committee for final oversight of the Council's performance view of 2021. Madam Mayor, I could go through the report if that is what Council wants, but basically the situation is that we have been assessed our performance this year. It hasn't gone to scrutiny as normal due to the timetable set by the legislation, but at each stage throughout the year, the performances have been reported to scrutiny and indeed to Cabinet and indeed Council. Majority information, as I said, has been with us before. It reflects that we are an amber council. We look as if we are in the amber, which is quite remarkable when you consider this has been done during the pandemic. It actually also talks about the fact that there are wellbeing objectives, which are also attributed to amber. And the other thing is, of course, that the head of audit's annual opinion of adequacy and effectiveness of the council's framework are one of reasonable assurance. It also lays out the 16 corporate risks on the register. The majority have been stable, but the two major ones really, I guess, are Brexit and COVID, but they will be looked at throughout the year. The report also talks about the new way of self-reporting, and that is covered within the report too. So unless anybody wants to take any comments from it, can I formally move the recommendations that I laid out earlier? Is that the council endorses the draft annual report. We endorse the proposed timetable for the new self-assessment, and that we pass this to the Governance and Audit Committee. I can never get my head around that one, for final oversight of the council's performance review of 2021. Can I formally move those recommendations, please?
And could I formally second, please?
Thank you very much, Leader. Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. Any comments? As there's no dissent to this recommendation, I take it as accepted.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. And can I also, at this stage, thank our officers for the amount of work that they've actually put in to actually assess this. It has not been a simple year. It has been really, really difficult year. But I have to say that they've come up trumps as usual. So can I congratulate the staff at all levels, please?
I think we all support that, Leader.
Thank you.
Tremendous job. Now we've gone to the business. We've gone to questions. This was a question of various council members. First one. With me 2 seconds.
I think the first one, Madam Mayor, is from Councillor Nugent Finn to the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Councillor Nugent Finn to Cabinet Member for Education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Nugent Finn. I'll just check. Yes, I am off mute. St John's Ambulance Cymru currently provide training in schools across Wales, giving children the confidence and knowledge they need to save a life. Pupils can participate either via a school visit, providing a 2-hour first aid awareness, or public access defibrillator awareness sessions, or through demonstrations during assemblies. Schools can also participate in the Young Lifesavers Award scheme and receive teaching resources and information about first aid and its place in the curriculum, enabling staff to deliver sessions themselves. Representatives from the Regional Education Consortia have also met with St John Ambulance Cymru, British Red Cross and British Heart Foundation Cymru to hear about the resources they currently have on offer to schools. Discussions also faced on the curriculum for Wales and the way in which their organisations could carefully align their work to the statements of what matter and for purposes. Following a press release earlier this year, we are anticipating a revision to the recommendations within the curriculum for Wales, and that all schools in Wales will now be required to teach life-saving skills and first aid under the nation's new curriculum. However, we've not heard any more specific details about this as yet. The NHS 111 service provides a comprehensive list of where defibrillators can be found across communities, including a number of schools within the Vale. And you can find more details on 111.wales.nhs.uk/.
You're on mute, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
I do apologise. The second question is from Councillor Nugent Finn to the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, may I ask a supplementary?
Certainly.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett, for the detailed question. I think I meant more specifically in terms of where we are rolling out within the curriculum, as this is a Welsh Government initiative. So I kind of got that answer. Really pleased that regards to St John's Ambulance, but so is that what we're going to be using as embedded into our learning curriculum? We're going to be taking up the free training from St John's Ambulance and things like the Calon Heart defibrillators, the policy is very much every school should have access to. Is that what we're going to be embedding in our curriculum throughout our schools in the Vale and Glamorgan? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. I think, as you mentioned, it was a detailed response on where we currently are. And as it said, there has been a press release by Welsh Government, but with no further details. Once we have those details, I will be happy to make that public.
That would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. I say question 2 is again from Councillor Nugent-Finn to Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. All schools in the Vale have undertaken comprehensive risk assessments with the support of the Council's health and safety team to mitigate the risk of COVID-19 transmission as far as possible. Risk assessments will continue to evolve as situations change and new practices, safety protocols and technologies will be deployed based on the scientific advice and guidance the Council received from Welsh Government. The Council has been advised that additional carbon dioxide monitors have been procured by Welsh Government and that they are expecting these to be delivered in local authorities during October for onward distribution to schools.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, yes, may I ask a supplementary, please, Madam Mayor?
Certainly.
Councillor Burnett, so with these carbon dioxide sensors in place, I mean, it's sad because obviously school started back in September, so let's hope it's sometime in October. What about the impact then on the findings of this? What's our preparation in if levels are seen to be high and there's not enough ventilation? What's going to be our impact on these findings, please?
Thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. I think if I refer back to my my response, our schools have been undertaking detailed risk assessments right throughout the pandemic. Our schools have been ventilating classrooms right throughout the pandemic, making sure that there's plenty of fresh air in those classrooms. Obviously, it's going to be helpful as we approach winter if we've got the carbon dioxide monitors, which mean that we can judge when we open and close windows. But I would imagine that most schools have fully ventilated classrooms at the moment as per their risk assessment.
Sorry, Mayor, you're muted again.
Sorry, I'm in a bit of a dither. Councillor Nugent-Finn to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. Question about brown signage. I can advise that the brown tourist sign policy is currently being reviewed by the Highways and Tourism teams, and a report on a revised policy will be considered by Cabinet shortly. I'm happy to advise Councillor Nugent-Finn of the likely date in due course, but it is imminent. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nugent-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for your response, Councillor King. Can you just tell me then, what's the difference between the installing of the new signage for car parking as opposed to supporting hospitality? Because some of the reasons for wanting this review of policy is because they don't feel it's supporting the green element of some of our policies. So I feel that's a bit of a contradiction. Could you answer that for me, Councillor King?
I think you raised an interesting question, but I think that's why we're conducting a review, and I think it'd be inappropriate for me to overtake that until it goes through the proper system. So I will ensure that is addressed in due course. Thank you.
Lovely. If I could have the date, that'd be really helpful. Thank you very much, Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question number 4, again from Councillor Nugent Finn, the Company Member for Housing and Building Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Nugent Finn. The Vale of Glamorgan Council has pledged to prove accommodation and support to 2 families in the immediate aftermath of the crisis. This is highly complex and rapidly evolving situations, and the authority has responded by working with local and regional partners to plan for the need of these families, which will require immediately access to housing, health care and specialised planning and support for these people. The authorities already has a contract in place with Taff Housing Association to deliver essential ingredient support through a team of high experienced caseworkers, which includes the provision of translators into other people that need to able to communicate when they need it. Members will know and understand that the intense pressure on the social housing market in the Vale of Glamorgan is to integrate the impact of receiving communities. The council is in discussions with landlords to identify affordable private rented accommodation, including some which have come forward in response to the leader recently appealing on Bro Radio. Clearly, there is a process to follow to ensure accommodation followed is suitable for these vulnerable people and their families, an approach to their special needs, but there has been positive process and several leads are currently being explored, which I will be offering to the Home Office in the coming weeks. We will, of course, ensure that any returning armed forces personnel that requires an assistant from the authority are given the support they need in line with our commitment under the Armed Forces Covenant.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Nugent-Finn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for your response, Councillor Wilkinson. So just to confirm, did you say that there's provision at the moment for 2 families?
2 families from the Afghan residents, yes, who's come into this country in the last couple of weeks. We are taking 2 families. That's what we have agreed to.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Thank you, Councillor Nugent-Finn. Question number 5 is from Councillor Janice Charles to the Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Education.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Charles. The works to the new school development are managed by the Barry Waterfront Consortium appointed project managers at Whitehead Allen, who are working with the Vale of Glamorgan Council. The consortium team have appointed the contractor Galliford Try to construct the new school development. Remediation works are planned on the school site and will comprise placing 600 millimetres of clean cover, which is 450 millimetres of subsoil and 150 millimetres of topsoil on the grass sports pitches. Testing will be undertaken of the clean cover material once it's imported and placed, and a verification report will be sent to the council to discharge the enabling works planning condition relating to the remedial works. We will also undertake waste acceptance criteria testing on the remainder of the site, including the school building, car park, hard standing areas and multi-use games areas after completion of enabling works and prior to handover to Galliford Try.
Thank you, Councillor Burnett. Councillor Charles.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you very much for all that detail.
when it was originally planned to build on that land, that it was contaminated, the soil levels had to be significantly raised, which you've mentioned. The soil is now being removed in open top trucks. Will you guarantee that this is safe by making all information available that is necessary to ensure that all actions taken, including the removal of the fill, which was put down in order to decontaminate the site, and siting of the school represents no risk to all involved and includes those involved in decontamination of the site, any members of the public who might be inadvertently exposed to contaminated material, and anyone using the site following the construction of the new Yscol St Barrack School at Barry Waterfront. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Charles, but I admit I am slightly confused that that wasn't the main part of the question if you expected a full and detailed response. I'm also surprised that you didn't ask the Cabinet Member for Planning. We as a council have, we impose planning restrictions upon developers. One of those is to ensure that their developments are safe. Those requirements are the details of which I've just given you. As a council, we are duty bound to deliver the safety of local residents. And I am quite concerned at the level of scaremongering in the question that you've just posed. I will listen back to the recording and I will make sure that all points have been covered. But at the moment, I cannot provide that level of detail, but I will make sure it's available to residents that may have been frightened by that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bebb. Councillor Charles, you have your hand raised for a reason. Councillor Charles?
Sorry, no, I've finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Councillor Charles, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Charles. Resident-only parking schemes are now in place at Barry Island, the Knapp, Cosmeston, Ogmore by Sea and Cowbridge. And as at the 14th of September 2021, the overall percentage of properties requesting residence permits in the new residential zones is 81.19%. The number of new permits issued in the new permit zones is 2,289 from 967 individual properties. The average number of residence permits per household in the new permit zones is 2.37. As at the 14th of September, there were 8 requests outstanding on the council system awaiting further information from applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Charles?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Because the wait for residents who have been waiting, I've been told that they're still waiting since July. They've told me that the wait on the telephones is unreasonable. What measures have the council got in place to gauge the productivity and performance of staff dealing with applications for parking permits in our country parks? And will these residents waiting be reimbursed if necessary for them to pay at the meters?
I think the councillor is mistaken by swapping portfolios, because you asked me about residential only parking permits and you've swapped over to country parks. Again, I can only hazard a guess at it, but I think we've done pretty darn quick turnaround of about 2,500 applications since the implementation. I do regret then that if somebody applied for a permit, they assumed that they would not need to pay for parking until it arrived. but you've thrown me a curveball because you've asked me about something that I'm not responsible for, so I apologise.
Thank you. I thought permits were permits, but thank you, Councillor King.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Charles, can you please lower your hand on the indication, please? Thank you. Question 7 is from Councillor Ian Johnson to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Johnson, in his absence. And I will refer to the answer to the question number 1, which was about defibrillators. But this relates to sports clubs and public buildings. What I can say is the defibrillators are located at all Vale Glamorgan leisure centres. They're also installed at our main corporate offices, at the civic offices, the dock offices and the Alps, as well as various sites within the community. The council is very supportive of efforts by local sports clubs and other organisations to locate defibrillators at more community locations where they can be accessed by any member of the public at all times. To assist with this, we will continue to pay for the installation costs of such locations as we have done in the past. The most recent example being the Mirchfield Community Centre in Dinas Powys, where the device is located on an outside wall and can be accessed by all in an emergency. Our officers are currently investigating funding opportunities for community accessible defibrillators in an attempt to further increase the network of devices available across the Vale of Glamorgan. And I assume there won't be a supplementary. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Question 8, again from Councillor Johnson to the Cabinet Member for Housing and Building Services. Councillor Wilkinson, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I will give you the reply even though Councillor Johnson isn't here. The local authority has pledged to prove accommodation and support to 4 refugees families in 21-22, including 2 from the current UK settlement scheme, UKRS, and 2 from the current Afghan situation, ARAP. The authority will consult with local and regional stockholders to determine its capability to participate in the ongoing resettlement of refugees in 22-23 and will expect to make a pledge which is coordinated with availability. I can't say that word.
Availability.
Thank you, of resources, including affordable housing and school places and everything that's needed.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Question number 9 is from Councillor Ian Johnson to Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson, and for his colleagues who wish this question to be answered. It's relevant to the timetable of development of the replacement local development plan. Rather than detailed timetable now, can I refer members and Councillor Johnson to the report which is going to Cabinet on 27th of September on this very issue, and this report will be published tomorrow. If Councillor Johnson has any questions following his reading of the report, I will only be too happy to answer them.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question number 10, again from Councillor Ian Johnson to the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Johnson. This is regarding preservation of important buildings, and particularly in towns such as Barry. The Vale of Glamorgan Council adopted the County Treasurer's List in 2007. And this list includes statutory designated historic assets, such as scheduled monuments and listed buildings, as well as buildings which are recognised as being of local merit. The inclusion of locally listed buildings on the County Treasurer's List does not have any immediate effect in law, and they are not currently subject to any additional planning controls over alteration or demolition. Demolition of unlisted buildings and those outside conservation areas is permitted, and in most cases, under Part 31 of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order 1995, as amended, Article 4 of the order may be used to require an application for planning permission for the demolition of an unlisted building outside a conservation area. Compensation may be payable in respect of planning applications made within 12 months beginning on the date the direction took effect, where those applications are refused. The Vale Glamorgan Local Development Plan has a number of policies of relevance to protect locally listed buildings. In addition, I trust you agree that we have an excellent track record of reusing historic buildings in the Vale Glamorgan. One needs only to look at the award-winning schemes in relation to previously council-owned buildings, such as the pump house, the Hood Road goods shed, and other council sites to recognise the role that this council plays in protecting our heritage. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question number 11 is from Councillor Carroll for the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Carroll. And this question is regarding plan decision appeal costs. The Council does not record the costs associated with officer time spent defending appeal decisions. In most cases, appeals are dealt with by the officers of the Council without the appointment of additional legal or other external expertise. In the year 2019-20, the Council defended 26 appeals and won 23, that is 88%. And during that year, the Council received no award of costs against us. More recently, in the year 2020-21, the Council defended 21 appeals against the refusal of planning permission and won 19, that is 90% of these appeals, and received no award of costs against us. To date, this year the Council has defended 15 appeals and won 12, 8%, and received no award of costs against us. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Carroll.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. In the past 7 days, the Council has admitted that viability information was not disclosed as required on the model farm planning application. As a result, the Council has agreed not to contest the judicial review of that decision, and so that planning permission is likely to be quashed. Will the Cabinet Member please confirm how this error was allowed to occur, and what measures is the Council putting in place to ensure that such errors don't occur in future and that residents can have confidence in the planning process?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. Yes, clearly this is a topical, quite an important topic, and yes, the Council wasn't found in error or at fault. Basically, there was an applicant for a judicial review, and we took advice from Council, and on that basis, that there was some information that was found that was unknown by the rest of the councils in all of Wales. And interestingly, the council that provided the feedback was also involved in the case in England. And there was some case law that changed the view, and the basis of that case was more to do with housing, and it wasn't. The main purpose wasn't about viability, and hence, you know, as I said to you, other planning authorities weren't aware of this actual issue until we sought this council. Having sought that council and found that rather than contest the judicial review, it would be better for us to accept that we were unaware. So therefore, we've taken the view that we'll accept that council, and therefore, as you're aware, that will now go to just the courts for them to decide whether to quash the application, the planning decision. So I don't, you know, there will be costs for the council that. Vale Glamorgan Council based on the advice that we've been given, but I can assure you that they're at the minimum costs compared to had we been going to a full judicial review. No doubt that'll come out in later reports. We've got to let the process go through. There is a letter going out regarding this whole situation and how we've come to the situation as we are now. And as you're aware, all planning members and councillors are being made aware of the current situation. We just need to let that plan through and we'll go from there. I hope that's sufficient information for you at the moment, Councillor Carroll.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. And the question 12 is from Councillor Carroll to Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Carroll. It's about residential permit parking schemes in the Llandoch ward. Our officers initially concentrated on introducing residential parking controls in those areas either affected by seasonal demand or the introduction of new off-street parking charges. And as you will appreciate, there is a significant workload associated with preparing the schemes, the schedules and the legal notices, along with the physical work on the ground. And it was always planned to progress the Llandoch scheme following the rollout of those initial areas. We're currently monitoring the success of the rollout in residential parking schemes in these areas so that we can learn any lessons for Llandoch. Whilst I'm unable to give you a specific date for the planned consultation for resident permit parking schemes for Llandoch at this time, I would hope that a suitable scheme can be progressed, including the preparation of schedules and legal notices associated with the TROs, traffic orders, to advertise the proposed residential parking controls in early 2022. However, this timescale and the viability of any future scheme progression is very much dependent upon the outcome of the parking and traffic survey work that will be needed. It is my understanding that senior council officers have recently made contact with you to arrange a meeting to discuss the matter in more detail so that you are fully apprised of the situation, and I think that's Thursday the 7th of October. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Carroll.
Yes, if you'll indulge me, Madam Mayor, this is more of a statement than a question, but I'd just like to thank the Cabinet member for agreeing to meet. That agreement was made after I tabled the question, and I look forward to working with him to progress the matter.
Thank you very much. Moving on, question 13 from Councillor Rowlands to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Can I say some of the supplementaries tonight are actually not supplementaries, and I think it's a poor show of trying to have supplementaries which have nothing to do with the original question. In relation to this, it's in relation to a ward breakdown of enforcement action re driveway accesses, as it's been called. I'd advise that to date, no formal enforcement action has been taken against anybody. It's very much our wish to work with the residents on achieving safe and proper constructed footway crossovers, as it's probably called, should they wish to continue to cross the public footpath after being issued with a letter indicating that no current permission is in place. Simple, quick answer, none have been issued. Thank you.
Councillor Rowlands wishes to have a supplementary.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Leader, for answering my question. What plans do you have, along with the Cabinet member, to meet the community group to respond to the concerns that they have about the Council's policy on drop-down curbs?
As this is not in my portfolio, I don't have any plans to meet with residents, and indeed, I think you're referring to something by the local MP who has stirred things up. If there are people that are concerned, then they can come to us, to our offices, and we will work with them. As I said, it's very much our wish to work with residents on achieving safe and properly constructed footway crossovers so that they cross the public footpath safely, not only for themselves, but for pedestrians and other users. There is no point in having a public meeting about something where it relates to individuals. If there's individuals wish to have correspondence with us, we are more than happy to do so.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Question 14, again from Councillor Rowlands to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. This relates to revenues generated by drop curb enforcement action. Can I start by saying this is not about revenue or income streams. It's about doing the right thing and ensuring that the safety of all highway users is not compromised, whether this relates to drivers, to pedestrians, or use the footway, as I said earlier. I can advise, though, that based on the number of applications received to date, we estimate the amount of income for 21-22 will be in the region of £11,000. This income will only partly contribute to the officers' time associated with issuing of the licences and monitoring. But I repeat, this is about ensuring safety of all our highway users. It should also be noted that there's a current budget shortfall in neighbourhood services and transport of about £1.25 million. It is nothing to do with that. It's to do with the safety and the requirements of the law.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rowlands indicated he wished to ask a supplementary.
Thank you, Leader, for that. My main question is, why is it taking you so long to enforce it now?
I think you didn't listen to the answer the first time or the second time. This is not about enforcement per se. It's about our wish, and I will repeat what I said again, our wish to work with residents on achieving safe and properly constructed footway crossovers. And I'd urge anybody who's had a letter to come forward to talk to our officers and come to some negotiations over all of it. But the fact is, it is a legal requirement, and it's actually an insurance requirement in many respects, of anybody crossing over the pavement, of a crossover, to do it so safely and legally.
Thank you, Leader. Question 15, again from Councillor Rowlands, the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Again, we have the same theme. This is officer time on drop curbs enforcement action. This is a similar answer to was given earlier. We don't hold specific records of the number of hours of officer time that has been spent on drop curb issues. This work is undertaken by a number of inspectors in conjunction with the many other duties that they regularly undertake to ensure the highway is safe.
Thank you, Leader, for that question. Again, you didn't really answer my question from before, so I'll ask again. Why is it taking so long to do it now? And the fact that your officers are saying that the only reason they can do this is because of increase in officer time. So that's my question. Why now?
Why now? Why now? Because it's a legal requirement. It's something which needs to be done. So we're doing it to ensure that everybody complies with the law, and that in doing so, they do it safely for both themselves and for pedestrians. So that's why we're doing it now.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Question number 16, again from Councillor Rowlands, the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. You asked me the current and future planned transport projects, and you've asked me, will I provide an update on the current and future planned transport projects throughout the Vale Glamorgan? Well, I'm going to give you the answer. You can ask for an update on road schemes, for road safety schemes. We carry out numerous road safety improvements throughout the year. If you have something specific, please email me and I'll reply to you in writing. But again, it isn't in my portfolio anyway. But the point being is that you ask such an open-ended question, it is impossible to answer without specifics.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Rowlands.
Thank you, Mayor, and I thank the Leader for his answer. Though being the Leader of the Council, he should know what's going on within his own administration. Did the council make an application to the Department of Transport's new station fund to develop a case for a new station at St Athan Railway?
Number one, yes, I do know what's going on generally in terms of this. As I said, this is something specific which is done through the regional transport forum, of which the cabinet member attends. Whether we've applied or not, I am not absolutely sure. I don't think that we have as yet, but I will get you a written answer.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Question 17 again from Councillor Rowlands, a Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. You asked for an update on road safety schemes, and as the leader has advised on the previous question, we carry out so many road safety improvement schemes throughout the year. I think the best thing is if you give me a specific area or topic or theme, I will endeavour to get you an answer. But quite frankly, it's a bit like, you know, how long is a piece of string? How long have you got? Where do I start? Where do I finish? Come on, give me a bit of focus, please.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Rowlands wishes to ask a supplementary.
Thank you, Mayor, and can I thank Councillor King for making me laugh this evening. So my question is, residents have raised concerns about the St Athan junction by the memorial, and as a frequent driver down that neck of the woods, I've seen how serious it can be. I just wanted to know basically what's the cabinet member doing to address the immediate issue?
That's a much more helpful question. Thank you. We are alert to it. We're monitoring it. We're keeping a lot of eyes and ears open. And certainly, if you can find me some money, I'll do something for you.
Sorry, Mayor, you're on mute again.
I'm sorry, I thought I clicked it off. Councillor Rowlands, who's a Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Yes, again, Mayor, it's a little bit vague, but you asked for an update on school transport. We contract some 195 school transport services throughout the year. If you give me something specific, I'll get you something more specific. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Rowlands wishes to ask a supplementary.
No, I thought I was being helpful by hinting in my question what the issue was, but clearly not. As the Cabinet Member appreciates, communication is key. Can the Cabinet Member explain why bus companies are not informing schools who would then inform parents when school buses are being cancelled? I understand there was a press release recently informing people why school buses were being cancelled. Well, can you look into this matter urgently, as many parents are getting really concerned, and also the schools, I'm sure, would like to be updated on it. I know obviously that there's a shortage of stuff, but I think communication is key, so that's why I wanted to ask the Cabinet Member.
I think the argument about communication is bang on. It's blooming difficult, but the problem is, as you've rightly identified and is in the national media, the shortage of drivers is widespread. And what you often find with coach companies is that they rely upon a pool of either retired or semi-retired drivers that they call in when they need them. And the problem is they really need to spend their time focusing upon getting in the relief driver and rescheduling the other services they're trying to run. But yes, it would be nice if they could give a bit more information. But I think these things tend to be a panic on the moment. But I will raise the issue about better comms. But it's blooming difficult. What would you rather do? Spend half an hour letting the Cabinet Member know so he can put out a press release, or spend half an hour finding a relief driver?
Thank you very much, Councillor King.
Madam Mayor, could I interject here, because Again, this question is really nothing to do with supplementary in some respects, but I also all know that COVID has hit one operator totally. So I think we have to have a bit of give and take here.
I dispute that. It's the supplementary is.
Question 19 is from Councillor Rowlands, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, Councillor Rowlands. You asked for an update on car parking charges, but you don't provide any specific question for me to respond to. If you have something specific, please email me and I'll reply to you in writing.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Rowlands has not indicated he wishes to act. Oh, he has indicated he wishes to act the supplementary.
Sorry, Madam, my hand function is a bit slow this evening, so please forgive me. So supplementary, the capital parking strategy estimate that 29 cars would use Wyndham Street car park between 2 and 4 hours, with a further 29 cars 4 hours plus. Looking at the current charges at £2 between 2 and 4 hours and £6 for 4 hours plus, income should be £290. Can the Cabinet Member confirm that the Council is generating this income?
No, not at the moment, but I will.
Thank you very much. Councillor King, Councillor Rowlands. Question 20, again from Councillor Rowlands. Councillor Rowlands, can you lower your hand function, please? Thank you. From Councillor Rowlands, the Cabinet Member for Leisure, Arts and Culture.
Thank you for your question, Councillor Rowlands. I don't think you'll be surprised at my answer. It's not very clear as to what you're actually asking. We obviously update our facilities in Barry throughout the year. So if there's something specific you'd like to ask me, please feel free to do so. And remember, you can talk to me anytime, not just in council. You can email me anytime. I'm going to respond.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Yes, an indication, Councillor Rowlands.
I would like to thank the Cabinet Member for that. It doesn't really benefit the public if I just email you directly. So my question is that the Cabinet Member will be aware that the serious issues going on at Colquitt Sports Centre. There's no hot water. The facilities is shockingly poor. As the football season has started, can the Cabinet Member give an update on what you're doing to fix the issue, even if it's a temporary issue? I admit, you know, at the end of the day, we need to try and get it sorted as much as possible. But will you also speak to Legacy Leisure? Because I understand the football clubs have tried to speak to Legacy Leisure to use the new Colquitt Sports Centre as a temporary basis while you know, you're looking to get the works done and stuff. And they refuse. So my question is, will you be able to speak to Legacy Leisure on a temporary basis, but also sort out Colquitt Sports Centre as well?
Thank you, Councillor Rowland. I think that's more than one question, isn't it? However, I can assure you we are in constant contact with the Football League in relation to the issues around the Colcott. We are looking at every option that is available to us. We are having conversations in regard to Legacy as well. I think it's kind of disappointing that you choose to bring one thing to the table today to highlight for the public, as opposed to all the renovations that we have done on the leisure centre, the removal of the slide, the ongoing conversations around skate parks and parks. So you want to bring something to the table like that, that's fine. I will come back to you, absolutely, but we are dealing with that issue at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCarthy. Thank you, Councillor Rowlands. Question 21 is from Councillor Bailey for Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. About a question about dropped curbs. The approved contractor list was last reviewed by the team in May 2020. All contractors on the list were contacted and asked if they wish to remain on the list. All confirmed they wish to remain on the list at that time. Currently, there are 17 such approved contractors. I am not aware of any contractors increasing prices if customers do not accept within an allocated time. However, if you would like a more detailed response, please provide me with specific information on the matter by email and I will respond on a case-by-case basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Bailey has indicated he wishes to have a supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to the Cabinet member. I don't want to name specific private companies in a public forum, as you'd expect, but I am more than happy to refer constituents to you privately if you want to investigate that further. But perhaps with that in mind, you might agree then to meet with the residents group in Barry that's been set up as a result of the decision to enforce this piece of legislation, despite it having been on the statute books for many, many years.
Well, I'll answer your second bit. No, because each thing is an individual and confidential matter between the residents. And frankly, I would not wish to reveal that Mr. Bloggs of Acacia Avenue was hard up and was asking to run it over credit over the year, which is one of our offers, in front of other people, because that would be totally inappropriate.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Question 22 again from Councillor Bailey to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you again, Councillor Bailey. It's not for me or my officers to provide such an assessment of impact. Willful obstruction of the highway is an offence, and the individual can be fined by the police if they prevent traffic from flowing freely. It is up to the driver of the vehicle to ensure that they park in a safe manner which does not cause an obstruction. However, and what is clear, is that it is not debatable that all crossovers should be provided in a regulated manner to an acceptable standard so that pedestrian safety is not compromised, and that our infrastructure is adequately maintained to a reasonable standard so that all highway users are confident of their safety when using highways and footways. Surely this is not up for debate.
Thank you, Councillor King. Councillor Bailey has indicated a supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Cabinet Member. We keep hearing this term about safety, and you've reflected, and I understand the importance of pedestrian safety, but we recently spent, and I say we, my colleague Leighton Rowlands and I from my ward, recently spent an hour with residents of Winston Road, where affected residents who've had these letters collectively opted to legally park on the highway instead of on their driveways, as advised, if they didn't want to pay for the money to upgrade their curbs. And what quickly became clear was that delivery vans wouldn't be able to get through the street, never mind your refuse collection team, or perhaps more worryingly, a larger emergency services vehicle such as a fire engine or an ambulance. Now, will you, in this slide then, will you take responsibility down the line for any issues that do arise, but hopefully clearly do not, as a result of the decision to force residents to retrospectively upgrade access to the drives, and if they can't afford to and choose not to park legally on their on the public highway, creating a blockage and access issues?
I repeat my earlier answer. It is not for us or me to underwrite anything. It is for the driver of a car. From the moment you take the keys, you are responsible for what happens to that car. And I'm not going to absolve people from that responsibility. But I would just add one further comment that has been raised before. And again, this is all to do with the confidentiality thing. And I'm desperately trying to persuade you to stop making it into a public debate. It is a confidential debate, because I know of an example where somebody went to sell their home after the parents had passed away. And when the solicitor did due diligence, they found that the crossover was not reported. And as a consequence, the sale was delayed and fell through. Now, if you want me to make all this terribly, terribly public, I really need written instruction from every single resident that you're asking me to deal with publicly, because I don't think it's right for me to do that. My officers and I are working tirelessly to try and help each individual case, and that's why there have been no prosecutions, because we are trying to get there as best as we can. But I really do urge you if individual residents have individual difficulties, please communicate.
Thank you, Councillor King. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Question 23 again from Councillor Bailey, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport. Again.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I can advise that the payments in Barry have been treated twice already this year, with a third treatment due in early 2022. In Barry, the first treatment took place in May and a second in July. As with this year, weed control is planned again for the next financial year. That said, I do recognise that weed growth on our highways across the Vale appears unchecked in certain locations. Our contractor is using a new form of treatment that reduces the use of herbicide by some 80% when compared to the previous application method. And our officers are currently viewing the viability of this and other possible weed measures ahead of the contract renewal due 31st of March 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King.
No, sir. Thank you for that answer.
Supplementary. Thank you very much. Now we go on to agenda item 8, which is questions from members of the public. Question 1 is from Mr. Curtis for the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Rob. This is in relation to commitment to end the use of herbicides and pesticides, which follows on from what Peter was just talking about. We currently treat weeds on our highways 3 times a year, as Peter indicated, during April, July and September. Our contractors use street spraying machinery featuring Weedit technology to deliver a targeted spray to the weed. This reduces the amount of chemical needed by up to 80%, again, as Peter indicated earlier. Nozzles are within an enclosed canopy, and so there would be very low risk of any drift or form of drift to other land. While some towns and cities are no longer using glyphosate, it remains the most widely used weed control chemical for councils in the United Kingdom and is approved in the EU for use until the 15th of December 2022. We were the first as it happens, and as far as I know, I'm aware, still the only council in Wales using the pesticide-free foam stream hot water and foam system to treat weeds in our feature and green flag parks. Unfortunately, it is more labour intensive and a lot slower, and at present the system would not be viable for the highway street weed control unless it was very small areas. Despite all the press coverage of the dangers possibly associated with glyphosate, it is a very well regulated pesticide and much less toxic to wildlife and the environment than many other compounds used daily. For instance, bleach, carpet cleaner, motor oil, air fresheners, oven cleaner, mold and mildew killers, and many, many more household and garden consumer products are all much more harmful to both ourselves and the environment, even when used correctly. There are continual tests of all glyphosate products, and when used properly, glyphosate is relatively safe. It is inert once it comes into contact with the soil, and is low in toxicity to fish and wildlife. It also binds tightly to soil, so it safeguards groundwater if applied correctly. That said, our current weed control contract is due to renewal in March next year, and with the impending likelihood of further glyphosate controls in 2022, and the concern being widely expressed regarding the continued use of this chemical, our officers will be looking at all available alternatives when putting together the specifications for the new weed control contract to operate from the 1st of April 2022. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Question number 2 is from Mr. A. Miller to the Cabinet Member for Education and Regeneration.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Miller. I think I first of all have to advise that you shouldn't believe everything you read on social media. There are currently no plans for development at the Old Harbour, and although it's not actually my portfolio area, I've been kept updated on this situation, and After repeated warnings to the boat owners, it was unfortunately necessary to remove 2 large illegally moored boats from the old harbour, as they were an environmental risk and also posed a hazard to shipping, with one of them becoming detached from its mooring lines earlier in the year and being at risk of floating out to sea. At the same time, we considered it prudent to remove the remaining wrecks that had blighted the harbour for many years. It's hoped that this will demonstrate to others who may be contemplating dumping unseaworthy vessels in the harbour that this won't be tolerated in future. So in short, our actions were purely driven by the need to protect, by the need to remove abandoned vessels from the harbour in the interest of safety, to protect the environment and to secure a general visual improvement on what is an important gateway to the island. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Burnett. Question number 3 from Ms J Brunskill, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms Brunskill. Your question relates to the Vale incinerator. As we're well aware, there is quite a lot of information in the public domain and also on the council website. The Planning Committee authorised the service of a legal enforcement notice on relevant parties at the Planning Committee on 1st September, and the report presented to the committee at that time fully explains the reasoning behind this approach and why enforcement action was recommended. The separate issue of the need of or otherwise for an environmental impact assessment and the subsequent environmental statement is with Welsh Government and will now be for them to resolve. It should be noted that the requirement for an EIA, an environmental impact assessment, was not upheld by the Welsh Government in 2015 when the Council considered the second application for this type of proposal. However, following a letter received in July of this year, Welsh Government has now formally changed its opinion and will be resolving this matter directly with the applicants. The current situation will continue to be monitored to ensure that the applicants have all necessary consents in place, and any future action will be considered and, if necessary, taken in accordance with the requirements of the relevant legislation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question number 4 from Mr R.S. Thorne, to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. It's in relation to vote of no confidence. Very simple answer to this is the Council's Constitution, paragraph 5.31d, addresses the issue of a vote of no confidence, which is subject to the time limit relating to motions of notice, which is addressed again at paragraph 419.1 of the Council's Constitution. So the answer is yes, you can, and that's how you find it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Leader. Question number 5 from Ms D Nichols, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms Nichols. Requesting information about permit parking introduced in Glamorgan Street. Whilst the council has no statutory responsibility to provide on-street parking, the council is sympathetic to residential areas that might be adversely impacted by visitor numbers, such as in resort or town centre areas, and it is for this reason we introduced the new resident parking controls policy in July 2020. Details of the new policy can be found on the council's website or through inquiries to C1V. Our officers are currently recording requests for resident-only parking in various areas, and I can confirm that I will add Glamorgan Street to this list for future consideration. However, I must also advise that the waiting list is already extensive, and given the limited budget available to implement such schemes, it is not possible to provide a timescale when such a provision may be provided at your location. I would also like to clarify that the implementation of a resident permit parking scheme will not necessarily enable residents to always park within their street, and will certainly not guarantee parking close to a specific household or property, given the general extent of car ownership on residential terraced streets and the limited length of curbside parking available to accommodate such parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question number 6 from Mr. P. Gibbs, the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mr. P. Gibbs. This is in relation to climate emergency. And what I can say is the climate emergency is fully recognised by this council. That said, the council's statutory role in determination of planning applications means that it must consider all relevant material factors when determining proposals for development, including a consideration of national and local policies, environmental factors, and the need for new housing. This process of assessment and balance, this process of assessment and balance prior to recommendations and determination is clearly set out in the Planning Acts and Regulation. The fact that a climate emergency or nature emergency has been declared does not override the need to consider development proposals that are submitted to the council by applicants and developers. As a council, we are duty bound to determine those applications and weigh up the acceptability or otherwise of each and every application, having regard to a range of material considerations. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question number 7 from Mr. R. Brewer, the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. R. Brewer. This is in relation to planning application for model farm roofs, it seems. As I've just explained in my answer to the last question asked by Mr. Gibbs, the council has to consider all applications for planning permission that have been submitted to it for consideration. In the case of model farm development, as is the case with the vast majority of applications for planning permission, the council is not the applicant and is also not the developer. It merely determines the application that has been submitted to it by others. In the case of model farm, the report presented to Planning Committee set out the reasons for the recommendations of approval, and it must be noted that the development also forms a key part of the council's allocation of employment land in the Vale Glamorgan Local Development Plan, which is the LDP normally called from 2011 to 2026. This provides the local planning policy framework for the Vale Glamorgan and was adopted by the council on the 28th of June 2017. All decisions should be made in accordance with that plan unless material considerations indicate otherwise. I think it's also pertinent to say at this time, it's also important to note that the matter relating to model farm application has been subject of an application for judicial review to of the council's decision, and this is something that is currently being progressed through the courts, and it's up to the courts to decide. So I will leave it there. So basically, as far as the local authority is concerned and the planning authority, of which I'm not a member, they have delegated authority and they have to deal with each and every application on its merits and within the framework of the local development plan and other planning requirements. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Leader. Question number 8 is from Mrs. L. Rowe, to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Rowe. This is about Birdcage Walk. I responded to a similar question to this posed by a member of the public in our previous council meeting in July this year. Unfortunately, we are not much further forward here due to the complicated legal issues involved. The council is currently liaising with relevant parties and considering its legal position to determine how best to move forward. In the meantime, the council is monitoring the situation and managing the necessary removal of vegetation, which in some cases is potentially contributing to the structural issues and would prevent future repairs being carried out. It is therefore necessary to keep Birdcage Walk closed for public safety until the issue of liability is resolved and an appropriate repair scheme implemented. Given this position, it is not possible to provide a timescale to reopen Birdcage Walk at this time. Whilst other sections of retaining wall along Broad Street do show some sign of deterioration, They are not adversely affected by the additional loading from a private retaining structure above, as is the case in the closed section. The adjacent footpath routes therefore remain open and safe to use, with the adjoining retaining wall being monitored on a regular basis. A zebra crossing is available in the vicinity of the old of the Barry railway station, and 2 further zebra crossings are available at the top of Ship Hill and to the west of Miskin Street to assist pedestrians crossing the road in these areas. Whilst this might involve a slight detour and minor inconvenience to access Miskin Street from Harbour Road, it is necessary for public safety due to the above-mentioned structural issues along Birdcage Walk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question number 9 from Ms G Adams, the Executive Lead and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Ms G Adams. Questions entitled Airport City, which I think is possibly a bit unfair, and it says we've granted planning permission for an airport city, but it also then talks about traffic assessments and also about cycle paths on 5 Mile Lane. So the report presented, and I'll go back to what I said in some respects before. The report presented to the Planning Committee set out all the issues relating to the consideration of the application, as I've set out earlier in earlier answers this evening. For clarity, the traffic assessment has not been submitted by the council, but rather the applicant, which is actually standard practice. It is the council's role to determine applications and to assess all the information submitted, including those traffic assessments. So it's not true to say that we have submitted a traffic assessment. In relation to the use of cycleways, finally, I would say regarding the use of cycleways, a cycle counter, because there was a question about 5 Mile Lane. A cycle counter was placed on the shared use cycle footway running alongside the A4226 between Waycock Cross and the Hawkins Centre from the 24th of October to the 30th of October 2020. Over the course of the week surveyed, 167 cycle journeys were made on the path. This is actually a relatively high usage for late October, so I think it is actually being used, but clearly that is a matter for the cyclists too. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question 10 from Mrs L. Harfoot, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Apologies for that. I was on my screen ready to answer the question and forgot to unmute. Right, here we go. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms Harfoot. As you're aware, the question's about land for industrial use, and more specifically, clearly, there's been several answers regarding the land next to the airport. There are a number of questions raised here, and I will try and answer them in turn, although a number of the points you raise are completely outside the control of this council. And as already indicated, I'll attempt to explain why. Firstly, I can advise that the council is not responsible for the sale of farmland at or around the airport. It is not our land to sell off. However, any person or organisation is entitled to apply for planning permission to develop land. The council then has a legal duty to determine applications. To do this, we must consider a range of relevant material considerations and reach a balanced judgment. The process is a complex one, and as in most cases, there will be material considerations that support the proposals, whilst others will be of concern. That is why determining proposals for development, especially when those proposals are significant in scale, is not always straightforward, and why there will always be conflicting opinions and views. This hopefully explains the council's role as an organisation that has to consider and make decisions on proposals. That consideration, as has been explained in other answers to similar questions, has had to have regard to planning legislation and national and local policy. The report that was presented to Planning Committee sets out the wide range of issues for consideration in this particular case. As has been said previously, the need to protect the environment by biodiversity is an important requirement, and one that has to be considered in balance against other factors. I do not therefore understand the comment about broken promises, given that this council has a legal duty to consider proposals submitted to it. And I would ask, and this is more for me to add to this question, if you read the report, there is lots of information about the areas that have been set aside to protect and protect the environment and the biodiversity. The assumption is that all this land has been taken over for development by buildings, and that isn't the case. And unfortunately, recognising there has been some unfortunate outcomes for this, it's viewed, particularly by the planning committee, to be the right way to go. So I hope that's sufficient answer to the question.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question number 11 from Mr. M. Warner to the Executive Leader, Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources. You're muted, Councillor.
I am indeed. I had to do it at least once tonight. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Warner. This is about defibrillators, and it sort of follows on from two of the questions we had earlier. It asks whether or not all sports venues around the Vale could have the life-saving machines. So what I would say is defibrillators are located, as I said earlier, at all local Vale Glamorgan leisure centres, as well as various sites in the community. And I referred to my answer earlier. The council is very supportive of efforts by local sports clubs to locate defibrillators at more community venues where they can be assessed 24/7 by any person in need. To assist with this, we will continue, as I said earlier, to pay for the installation costs at such locations as we have done in the past. And again, I will reiterate, the most recent example being the Mirchfield Community Centre in Dinnisbowes, where the device is located on an outside wall and can be accessible by all in an emergency. So we are happy to make those available wherever they are required, and we will help wherever we can. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. Question number 12 from Mrs. C. Ockerby to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. C. Ockerby. This is in relation to a question of a commercial company. The Good Shed development was a result in a multi-million-pound private investment that has transformed the Good Shed and created many new jobs for the benefit of Barry and the Vale Glamorgan during the past few years, despite the enormous challenges of the pandemic. In accordance with the Cabinet Minute C3416 on the 9th of January 2017, which was the Cabinet meeting at the time, the Good Shed site was marketed for disposal of, marketed and disposed of by the council to DS Properties Good Shed Limited, which is a company that you refer to. The financial details of the sale contract are commercially confidential matter. So I really don't believe how much money does the property owe the Vale Glamorgan. Is not something that I can share. It is a commercial confidential matter. It is true that a Welsh Government targeted regeneration loan, which is TRI sometimes called, was provided to the company towards the cost of the Good Shed project through the council. That loan is a matter was reported to Cabinet under part 2 of the agenda on the 7th of January 2019, with a loan granted in accordance with a confidential report in accordance with part 2 Cabinet Minutes C545. So basically, I'm afraid I cannot give you confidential information such as this to a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question 13, again from Mrs. Ockerby to the Executive Leader, Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. This is in relation to Merthyr Street. Apparently on behalf of beautiful Barry, it relates to Merthyr Street. It isn't actually part of my portfolio, but I can answer that the temporary traffic management arrangements at Merthyr Street are required for Wales and the West utilities to undertake essential works to upgrade some 400 metres of gas main. No road closures have been requested by their contractor, and works are to be undertaken between restricted hours of 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. However, these hours were relaxed over the summer holidays to maximise the working day for the contractor in an effort to reduce the disruption to residents. Our highways inspector regularly attends the site and on their visits have reported vehicles progressing through the works with no issues. The inspectors will continue to regularly inspect the site to ensure that the terms and conditions of the works are adhered to. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question 14 from Mrs. C. Ockerby, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. I see your question is on behalf of beautiful Barry, and it's about an increase in litter. There is no excuse for littering, and it is highly regrettable and frustrating that we have seen some increase in litter and the amount of material placed in our litter bins this year. No doubt, in part, due to increased visitor numbers at many of our attractions owing to the difficulty in accessing holidays abroad. We are, however, content that we have managed, in the main, to comply with our statutory duties in dealing with it, within our existing resources, and with the welcome support of voluntary groups like yourselves. Thank you. There are no immediate plans to employ more street cleaners. Rather, there is a recognition that the council's cleansing service will need to reconsider its priorities as demands increase and behaviours change. In this regard, our officers are currently assessing the need for further educational programmes and improving our engagement with various stakeholders to help tackle this extremely antisocial practice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 15, again from Mrs. C. Ockerby, to the Executive Leader, Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. This is in relation to an extension of accommodation at the Good Shed. Again, it's another confidential matter, and I will read the question because I think it's important you understand what I'm talking about. It talks about with the extension of the accommodation at the Good Shed being applied for, could the council explain the financial arrangements between the developer, the council, and Newydd Housing Association? I will again reiterate that any financial arrangements between the developer and Newydd Association is commercially confidential matter for those two parties. In terms of the council, again, I will confirm that Good Shed site was marketed and disposed of by virtue of a long lease to DS Properties Good Sheds Limited in accordance with the Cabinet Minute C3416(2) following the Cabinet meeting held on the 9th of January 2017. And again, the financial arrangements of the land transaction is commercially confidential. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question 16, again from Mrs. C. Ockerby, to the Executive Leader and Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. Again, I think on behalf of beautiful Barry. We're looking for an update in relation to the skate park in the NAP. The council remains committed to providing quality skating opportunities across the whole of the Vale Glamorgan, including the skate park located at the NAP. The success of Great Britain in the skateboarding events in the recent Olympics obviously demonstrates that this is highly likely to be a growth sport in future years. One of my officers recently met on site with the trustees of the Richard Taylor Memorial Fund and other interested parties to discuss the future of the park. At this meeting, it was confirmed that we would be doing all reasonable work necessary at the site for it to remain open, whilst efforts are made to seek a permanent replacement for the facility. The Richard Taylor Memorial Fund trustees are keen to assist in raising funds for a new park, and the council will look to support these efforts as it did previously to hopefully enable a new park to be constructed in the future.
Thank you, Leader. Question 17 from Mrs. C. Ockerby, to Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. This is about Buttrell's estate, again asked on behalf of beautiful Barry. The majority of the equipment in this play area was installed in 1993, with a minor upgrade undertaken in 2004 when some new equipment was installed and a carpet overlay added. It is recognised the equipment at this location is of an older design, and refurbishment schemes are appraised and considered annually based on risk, usage and the levels of funding available. The team will re-evaluate the site on the next round of assessments, but the most recent inspection allocated a low to medium risk rating for this site, which means that other play area locations are in greater need of work than this particular site. And as an example, the Knapp skate park. Ideally, we would like to have a scheduled plan for replacement of all our play area equipment, but regrettably, we simply do not have sufficient capital funding to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 18, again from Mrs. Siakabi to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you, Mrs. Ockerby, again asking on behalf of beautiful Barry about White Farm Valley. Unfortunately, the council has limited resources to assist in developing a plan to improve the Carrickston River corridor at this present time due to ongoing commitments to address flooding throughout the Vale. However, the council would support and encourage any groups who have an interest and knowledge of such matters, including Cardiff River Group, to put forward viable and detailed proposals together with an implementation plan to encourage wildlife and biodiversity in key watercourse corridors, such as that at White Farm Valley. The council is always eager to work with any local groups that seek to enhance the environment of the Vale of Glamorgan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 19, again from Mrs. Siakabi to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. Again, on behalf of beautiful Barry, she is asking about the old harbour and the boats being removed. And my answer is that the main focus for the old harbour in Barry is now to allow nature to thrive in this area, free from the risks of environmental pollution caused by abandoned boats. I am delighted that we have taken the opportunity to remove the old wrecks from the harbour and have been able to improve safety and the appearance of the area, whilst at the same time removing potential sources of pollution. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 20, again from Mrs. Siakabi to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. Again, asking on behalf of beautiful Barry, asking about bulky waste items collections. And my reply is that demands for bulky waste service can differ throughout the year. We appreciate that there can be some demand peaks in certain locations, but at present there is an average of 4 to 5 weeks wait for a service, and this is consistent with our normal service standard. The cost for this service is supported by the charge for a collection, £20 for 3 items and £5 for additional items, thereafter to a maximum of 5 items per collection, in other words £30, but not fully covered. Customers can also take their own items to either of the council's 2 recycling centres located on Atlantic Trading Estate and Llandau free of charge. Alternatively, there are options such as engaging a private registered company or a charity that collects equipment for reuse. At present, like many other councils, we are experiencing driver shortages. We also have limited numbers of the specialist vehicles required for this service, and it is unlikely, therefore, that there would be an option to add additional resources to reduce waiting times at this moment. But we will keep this under review and consider this should the future waiting times consistently be in excess of our normal service standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 21, again from Mrs. Siakabi to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Again, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. Asking again on behalf of beautiful Barry about safety of visitors. The recent incident involving a car accessing the promenade through the barrier onto the beach. We are not aware of any risk to the public caused by this particularly irresponsible act, which was promptly dealt with by the police. This barrier is open to allow access to the rear of the western shelter and for delivery vehicles to drop off to the various commercial premises located under the shelter and along the promenade. Our officers are reviewing the current access arrangements, but we do not believe that the current arrangements, which have been in place for years, are fundamentally unsafe. It is difficult to put measures in place to account for all types of behaviour, and we would not wish any controls to be disproportionate to the issue in hand, as this could be detrimental to the traders who regularly use this access. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 22 is from Mrs. G. Sims-Williams, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. G. Sims-Williams. Questions in respect to climate crisis. Assuming this question related to the model farm development, there have been a number of answers given already this evening to very similar points. In addition, it is worth pointing out that the next two questions are almost identical in nature. In summary, and apologies for repeating what has already been said, when applications for new developments are submitted, this council has to consider those proposals having regard to all relevant material considerations. The fact that we have quite rightly declared a climate emergency does not mean that we can ignore our legal responsibility for determining proposals for new development. In the same way, the fact that we have a climate emergency does not mean that all proposals for development should be automatically rejected. It is about considering proposals having regard to all relevant factors. And this is a balance, and decisions are often finely balanced. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question 23 for Ms. A. Maidment, to the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Ms. A. Maidment. I refer to the answer that I've just provided to a very similar question from Mrs. Sim-Williams. I do not intend to repeat all the same points, but would simply refer to the answer that I've just given. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question 24 from Mrs. A. Reeves, the Cabinet Member for Legal, Regulatory and Planning Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Mrs. A. Reeves. Again, I would refer to the answer that I've just given, as all those points are relevant in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Question 25 from Mrs. A. Westerland, to the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Westland. This is a question about graffiti in Barry. The council and police continue to work with businesses on the issue of graffiti in the Halton Road area, both in the removal of it and security/preventative solutions going forward. Our officers are in the process of identifying the owners of the empty properties in order to discuss the issue of graffiti. Discussions are also ongoing and have been positive to date with the youth offending team and probation service, with the aim of implementing a programme of work to assist in the removal of graffiti from private property. As regards whether the specific culprit in this case could be involved in assisting the clean-up, whilst I understand your position, unfortunately I'm unable to answer questions relating to individual offenders due to data protection matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor King. Question 26 is from Mrs. C. Ockerby, Executive Leader, Cabinet Member for Performance and Resources.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Ockerby. There's maybe some confusion as to time of council question dates. The answer is within the council constitution, and I think easily found. It's paragraph 3.2 of the council's constitution, sets out various ways in which members of the public may get involved in council business. This is further supported by paragraph 4.17 of the council constitution regarding questions by the public at full council meetings. Advice is available also on the council's public website, which explains that questions by the public must be received at least 10 working days prior to the meeting. By way of an example, for this 20th of September meeting, the deadline for questions was midnight on Sunday, the 5th of September, allowing 10 working days from Monday the 6th to Friday the 17th. We will give further consideration to your observations in line with the ongoing work associated with public participation. But I think that the number of questions tonight is clear that you can submit questions and you will get answers to public questions. But as I said, it is there on the public website. And in terms of other business get involved, then clearly there's involvement that the public can have with scrutiny committees too. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Question 27 from Mrs. J. Hartwell, the Cabinet Member for Neighbourhood Services and Transport.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mrs. Hartwell, who asks about airtight provision for motorhomes. In reply, the Council constantly keeps under review the facilities and services it makes available at all of its managed sites, aimed at improving the tourism offer at the Council sites, including at Barry Island, are welcomed, and I am grateful for your question. It is particularly relevant now as we see the rise in the staycation, as you suggest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor King. That's the end of the questions. I have nothing to add or to declare an urgent. Nothing under part 2. So on that note, I'll say thank you all very much for taking part and good night.
Thank you, Mayor.
Good night. Good night. Yeah, take care, Jane. Good night.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jane. Take care.
Thank you all. Good evening.
Bye all.
Good night.